Right. Hello and good afternoon, dear speakers, participants, online followers of the session. Welcome to this session on natural gas, a second International East Med Energy Forum, Natural Gas Export Options and Energy Crisis session, hosted by ASPU, Northern Cyprus Turkish Republic, and organized by TESPA. In this session, the natural gas export options and energy crisis issue will be discussed and evaluated in detail by distinguished speakers. So I am Professor Dr. Mustafa İlbaş from Gazi University Energy Systems Engineering Department, and I am also the president of TEBAM. And I will be moderating this session. We have three distinguished speakers at this session. Mr. Ali Murat Becerikli, he is the Vice President of TESPAM, and Dr. Fabio Indeo from Italy. And hello, Ali Murat Becerikli.
Hello, Mr.
Hello, Dr. Fabio Indeo. And Orin Scheffler from Israel. Hello, Orin Scheffler, Mr. Scheffler. Right, now I would like to start with Mr. Murat Becerikli. I'm going to give brief information about each speakers at the beginning of the presentation. Murat Becerikli is a mechanical engineer, an expert on energy, fuels, international energy policies, and relations. He has been working for decades at the Ministry of Energy Natural Resources of Turkey. He has also worked for Treasury of Turkey as well. He is Vice President of TESPA. Let's start with you, Mr. Becerikli. You can start your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind presentation of mine. I will just prepare the projections of TESPAM and also the regions mapping to make a brief understanding of what's the capacity, what's the possibility of the region. As TESPAM, we have prepared some projections, and which is very famous on the hydrocarbon side. In the very beginning, we saw that there are some issues on the Mediterranean, east side of the Mediterranean, which is very related with the economical zone issues. But on the other hand, the resources of the East Mediterranean is very hopeful in the last 10 years. There are many explorations and there are many investments has been made, and the natural gas is partially in use already. But on the other hand, the security of supply through the EU is becoming very important, very essential in the last events of the geopolitics. That's why this East Mediterranean natural gas became very important on the security of supply of many countries. We saw that there are two options to with East Mediterranean natural gas. One option is the pipeline issue. The other one is the LNG issue. LNG is a very short and easy way to implement, to start up, but it's not the sustainable way. So when we look at the pipeline issues, there are two options. There were two options. One was going through the Greece, and the other one is going through the Turkey, and they connect each other in the European side. But the extreme cost of the Greece pipeline project made it cancelled because it has been studied more than 10 years, and the cost of the natural gas become extremely expensive to the end user. So we look at the regions when we look at the region's capacity, first focusing on the Egypt side, which is already in use, and we consume the natural gas, which has the export capacity already. There are many sub wells has been opened, discovered in the recent years, and we saw a huge amount of capacity, annual capacity. This is the billion cubic meter per annual capacity, and it's about more than 55 billion per year. This gas will be exported, of course. It's already being exported by LNG tankers, and we use it, especially the last one, the Zor. The Zor site is the half of it, approximately. Then we look at the consumption of the Egypt. What is their consumption and what is the total production? We see that there is a big potential on the export side, because the internal consumption of the Egypt is about 1/3 of the potential discoveries. So this export issue will become a big opportunity for the natural gas markets and also for the Egyptian economy. The amount of the natural gas for long years, the current discoveries made Egypt gas can easily be exported. On the other hand, Israel gas production up to 2050, it is also a big potential, which is highly above the Israel's consumption. This billion cubic meter annually calculated, and it becomes 30 BCM per year in the maximum dates. It's maybe 10 years later. So this potential is, when we look at the consumption of the internal consumption of the Israel, there is a huge amount of capacity to be exported. So this production and demand issues provide us that there will be some sales to other countries. And for example, Israel has a potential to sell the gas to Jordan. And there is another issue on the Cyprus island. There are new discoveries there, and there is another potential there. So each country has excess of gas other than they need. So this makes the East Mediterranean a big trade opportunity, a big center for security of supply of the European Union and also the regional countries. When we look at the current situation, there is a Turkish Stream pipeline already operated by Russian and Turkish operators, and it is provided from Greece to Italy. So there is an already infrastructure there that can make it available in the markets with low costs. This is other than the LNG, the pipelines make it low cost and sustainable and made a long-term contract for the consumers. When we look at the EastMed pipeline, which was designed but cannot apply because of the extreme costs, this is not in the agenda now. So we need to find other options because the extreme cost make the natural gas very expensive to the end user of the European Union. On the other hand, the Lebanese side, there was the conflict in the region because of the diplomatic issues. The very little piece of territorial problem in the sea was stopping most of the joint studies with those countries. A few months ago, this problem has been solved, and following the cancellation of the Euromed pipeline. Now the table is empty and there are excess of gas, and it's easy to export with some infrastructure investments. When we look at the current situation of the demand side, the European side, they are exporting a huge amount of pipeline gas from the Russia. This pipeline gas, especially for the Nord Stream, it is now not operating. The second one is problematic with the explosion, and the first one is problematic with the amount. Despite there is the Ukraine war, the Brotherhood pipeline is already operating, but the sanctions related with the Ukraine war made the trade of natural gas from Russia will be less each year than the other years. And the European Union has some security of supply investments and principles they get. Together with those European studies, they increased the amount of investment on the renewable resources, and they also invested on the infrastructure for the storage and the LNG terminals. So the trade started last year, but it was very extremely expensive. But we evaluated the cost of the last year's excessive expensive price is not only because of the Ukraine. It is coming from the previous year. After the Corona period, the investments of the maintenance of the wells, hydrocarbon wells, was stopped, and the prices were very low because of the low consumption. Then sudden increase in the consumption made the extreme prices before the Ukraine war. Now the prices are settled down, but we expect that a few more years the problematic issues will continue on the European security of supply, and that's why they should take some additional steps to cover this problem. One of the suppliers is TANAP project, and the other one is Turkish Stream, but the Turkish Stream is already Russian gas on the other side. The TANAP one was supplied from the Azerian side. So there is a supply to the EU through Italy. So the Italian markets are important on the security of supply, but on the other hand, Turkey, together with these investments and many resources that we acquire the natural gas and transfer it to the European continent, we are now establishing a international tradable gas market, because the current ongoing natural gas market in Turkey is internally operating. Now it's on the way to be expanded to facilitate the trade on the other resources coming to Turkey and transferring to the European Union. So this there are also the Sakarya issue in Turkey. In this region we have different blocks we provide. From Azerian and Turkmenian gas, we see that another possibility. Iranian gas is already flowing, but maybe for the trade it might be some problematic. There is another potential in Iraq, and the most important today's agenda is the Eastern Mediterranean natural gas resources of different countries. So when we established, other than the LNG terminals of Turkey, the potential of gas trade is important from Turkey to the other markets. Turkey's own gas consumption is about 60 BCM. This year it will be some less, but in the projections of test plan, we see that it's not exceeding the 70 BCM or 75 BCM. So we use the electricity, we use the natural gas in the electricity generation, power generation, and increasing renewable usage will not make Turkey to increase the use of natural gas on the power generation side. There are the potentials of many more sites on the Eastern Mediterranean, and we as TESPAM International provide some other support on the regional cooperations and geopolitical issues. We are following the agenda and trying to support all regional projects to be used in bringing the peace to the region. My hotspot for today's agenda is that. So I thank you very much for this opportunity to tell me this information to the audience.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ali Murat Becerikli. Ali Murat Becerikli has given us very detailed information actually about natural gas resources and existing pipelines and the possible pipeline projects. So we thank him for this valuable information. So now we go on with the next speaker. Next speaker is Dr. Fabio Indeo from Italy. Dr. Fabio Indeo has PhD in geopolitics, currently is analyst at Observatory for Central Asia and Caspian and researcher at the University of Siena. He worked for a decade as analyst at Center for Energy Governance and Security, Seoul, South Korea. So now our next speaker is Dr. Fabio Indeo. Okay, you can start, Dr. Fabio Indeo, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to have the opportunity to share my research with you and to discuss about and one idea that I developed. Wait a moment.
I think you have.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. I have. So I prepared my presentation about the East Med, but in a provocative way, in the sense that maybe the East Med corridor can be conceived no more as a pipeline, but as a useful energy corridor based on LNG, which allow to overcome some hindrances which hamper the realization of this important corridor, especially because we have the possibility to link the demand of the European Union with the offer of gas from the Levant Basin, especially from Israel, but also from Cyprus and potentially Lebanon, and of course with the role of Egypt as a key hub in the Mediterranean. This is a profitable option, but it is necessary to reshape the structure of this project. So I would like to start considering the definition, very short, the definition of energy security in order to better link the Levant Energy Basin as a producer or potential suppliers. For these countries, energy security is the guarantee of reliable revenues from their final markets, and the European Union, the energy security, the availability of reliable suppliers at affordable prices. So the common link is the need to avoid disruption and to offer regular energy supplies to the markets. And of course, the European Union as the energy consumer. This is a short introduction in order to show how is important the energy partnership between the European Union and the Eastern Mediterranean countries as suppliers, especially after the energy crisis with Russia. The threats to the EU energy security, a decreasing domestic production, the slow implementation of diversification strategy. Because if the European Union could be able to develop a diversification strategy before the crisis with Russia, maybe the European Union and the countries will not so exposed to this vulnerability and this condition of threat to the energy security condition. After the outbreak of the Russia-Ukrainian war, there is the potential total interruption of Russian gas imports to the European Union, even if it is not so true, because you know that LNG export from Russia to the European Union are at the same level that in the past. But in speaking like pipelines, we have a reduction from 40% to 15%. And especially one of the other strategic cards for the European Union could be the Repower EU, this strategy which has the main purpose to make the EU independent from Russian fossil fuels by 2030. So this means that it is necessary to find alternative routes, alternative energy corridors to satisfy the EU energy demand. And looking for alternative suppliers, we have some very close, geographically speaking, suppliers, very promising suppliers, very reliable suppliers in political terms as a political reliable partners compared to Russia or other countries, which are currently energy suppliers for the European Union, but they have not so strict relation such as the European Union and Israel, for instance. So, also with the Repower EU and the need to realize to have available energy supplies from alternative suppliers for the European Union, it is necessary to increase LNG supplies to the European Union because it's impossible to increase the spare capacity of the existing gas pipeline, Algeria, Azerbaijan, and Norway, and it needs a long time to realize new infrastructures in terms of pipelines. So the LNG could be an option. Increase LNG imports from the European Union could be an option in order to achieve in the short term, in the medium term, the need of additional energy suppliers in order to enhance the energy security. And one of the main partners are located in the Eastern Mediterranean. Considering the energy bonanza in the Eastern Mediterranean, you know about data concerning the Levant Basin, 1.7 billion barrels of oil and 3.4 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. And these are realistic data. If we consider that Israel combining proved reserves and potential future exploration can easily overcome 1 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. And we should also add the other potential suppliers in the region, such as Cyprus, such as Lebanon, and other countries. One of the main problems maybe to solve in the Eastern Mediterranean is how to realize the energy infrastructure in order to meet the demand in the regional scenario or to meet the demand in the international markets. Probably due to a combination of geopolitical rivalries, some unsolved questions concerning a lot of countries in the region, Turkey and Cyprus, Lebanon and Israel, the role of Syria, which is not a stable country in order to be crossed by overland pipelines. So it is necessary to find a way to export, to find a market for this export. It is very interesting, in my opinion, this slide, which is focused on the EU Energy Security Strategy 2014 with the 3 pillars that the East Mediterranean countries are able to satisfy. First of all, the promotion of a southern gas corridor of also fueled with the Eastern Mediterranean suppliers, the development of LNG facilities. Israel, Cyprus, Egypt are working to develop additional LNG facilities and accelerating the construction of key interconnectors. In that case, key interconnectors, not only in the European Union perspective, but also in the regional perspective in the Eastern Mediterranean. For instance, the reverse flow in the Arish-Ashkelon gas pipeline is a good news for the European Union in order to increase the availability of gas. And other key interconnectors which can be combined in order to satisfy the EU energy needs. Of course, in the case of the European Union, the flagship project has been conceived, the Southern Gas Corridor, as you know, crossing Turkey and mainly fueled by Azerbaijan. But the Southern Gas Corridor is affected by several existing challenges which undermine the full potential of this corridor. First of all, tap capacity, which is the gas pipeline which arrived in Italy, is only 2% of the current EU energy demand. And this pipeline can be expanded in order to double its capacity to 20 billion cubic meters of natural gas. And if the European Union and the other countries want to extend the capacity of the TAP pipeline, it is necessary to realize a new energy routes in order to increase the capacity. So it is not convenient in terms of times, because the European Union need now to have enough gas to satisfy the energy needs. If we combine this point with the target of the Repower EU to reduce and in order to cut hydrocarbon footprint in the EU energy mix. So natural gas is important in the medium term in order to help the European Union in the so-called energy transition. And about the Southern Gas Corridor, we have other hindrances, such as a reluctant Turkmenistan, and especially the opposition of Russia in order to realize a natural gas pipeline crossing, or better, linking the two shores of the Caspian Sea. And the East Mediterranean Gas Pipeline is an old project, is a backed and supported by the European Union as a project of common interest, but maybe in this form can be defined as unrealistic. For offshore natural gas trunks are very ambitious to realize. This is an expensive option, and there are the combination of several issues which potentially hamper the realization of this project. The Italian company Edison, together with DEPA, the Greek company, said that in 2026, maybe 2027, this project can be realized. It needs 4 additional years to realize this project. It's enough for the European Union because, I highlight again this point, the European Union needs now the gas. And the gas now can be offered by the East Mediterranean countries, especially Israel, but also Cyprus is more or less ready to deliver natural gas to Egypt and then to the European Union. And if the possibility to deliver this natural gas by pipeline is very hard, maybe it's possible to develop to use LNG facilities. This is the key option which could help together the European Union and the East Mediterranean countries in order to achieve their energy security condition. And the tripartite energy deal signed among EU, Israel, and Egypt in 2022 is very promising in this sense. Also, Egypt has started to export Israeli gas to the European Union, considering that since 2019-2020, Israel is exporting gas to Egypt. And another good news is the agreement between Israel and Lebanon to demarcate maritime borders, even if, of course, it is necessary to implement this deal. And in terms of improvement of regional cooperation, I believe that Turkey exclusion from the East Mediterranean Gas Forum represents a weakness factor which affects regional energy cooperation, which should be based on the combination of all the efforts, political efforts and economic efforts in the area in order to promote the possibility and to develop a regional cooperation in the energy terms, which could be useful for all involved actors. So, in my opinion, the East Mediterranean Energy Corridor, based on LNG export, is characterized by a strategic flexibility because it allows in the short term to preserve the energy security of both suppliers and consumers, delivering LNG to the European Union, which could be the good card. Also considering Italy has received yesterday its first LNG floating facility, and another one can be operative in the next year. So Italy, which is the country in the European Union, together with Greece, most closer to the Eastern Mediterranean countries, this confirm once again how is important this option. And I close my presentation showing the different projects and the different possibilities to realize in the short, medium terms, also LNG facilities in the Eastern Mediterranean, which could help Israel, Cyprus, and potentially Lebanon to export natural gas directly to Egypt or directly to the European Union. So paving the way not only for a strategic partnership in energy terms, but also in political terms, strengthening political cooperation, which could be very useful in order to promote prosperity, economic prosperity, and the condition of political stability, which could be fruitful for all the actors involved, both in the Eastern Mediterranean and in the European Union. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fabio Indeo. You have given us very detailed information about EastMed natural gas resources and also the existing and possible projects and pipelines, and also the LNG alternative. And also, I can make a comment. I think after the former EastMed project, pipeline project canceled or cancellation, at least we know now, I think we need a new EastMed project. New EastMed project may be organized by the former EastMed project partners, including Turkey and also the Cyprus, of course, Northern Cyprus as well, and through Turkey to Greece and to Italy. Probably this is the feasible and I think best way. So then this project may be, I think, performed, maybe realized by new partners of the new project. Actually, we can support these resources from Mid-East resources, not only the EastMed resources, but from maybe Mid-East resources. So I can name this project Mid-EastMed project. Okay, Mid-EastMed, from supported by Middle East probably resources and EastMed resources. All together, we can transfer this huge natural gas resource to Europe. Okay, thank you very much. Now, our next speaker from Israel, Oren Scheffler from HMS Israel. Oren is a corporate and commercial attorney and has been active in the energy and high-tech industries for over 18 years. As part of his expertise, Oren has worked on offshore oil gas projects in Israel and has focused on the development of offshore infrastructure. Oren writes research and lectures periodically as part of the MA program on national security and maritime strategy offered by the School of Political Sciences at the University of Haifa, in collaboration with the Maritime Policy Strategy Research Center, HMS. Oren is admitted to practice law in the state of Israel and the state of New York as well. Okay, thank you very much for joining us, for being a speaker in this session. Oren Scheffler, Mr. Oren Scheffler, you can start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Professor Ilbas, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to set up my presentation. One moment. Okay. So hello to everyone, and thank you for introducing me. My name is Oren, and the good news is I'm not a politician. I'm a corporate and commercial attorney specializing in energy infrastructure. And my approach is very practical, and it's designed to enable moving forward and establishing projects for the benefit of the region and for Israel. I've been asked today to introduce the series of unique steps that the State of Israel has taken over the last 20 years to establish itself as an energy producer and regional exporter. It's been a long and difficult road, and the state has privatized the oil and gas industry, but as such, it has also taken measures to secure the energy security for its local consumption, and also to ensure that it benefits and the people of Israel benefit from the vast wealth associated with becoming an energy producer and exporter. I will connect this presentation to two current issues that are very relevant to this conference. The first is addressing, where possible, the potential for future natural gas exports to Turkey or via Turkey. And the second, of course, is the implications of the recent Israel-Lebanon delimitation agreement. As Lebanon proceeds to develop its offshore resources, there are lessons to be learned, and some would say, with all the difficulties, that the easiest step was taken. Drawing a maritime boundary in the sea seems complicated, but the road ahead may prove to be even more complicated. So, where is Israel with respect to producing natural gas? So over the last 20 years, the first field, which is now depleted, was the Mary B platform and the Yam Tetis project. Supplied Israel with natural gas for 10 years. During the end of that time, a subsea pipeline was constructed offshore between Israel and Egypt, and primarily designed to import natural gas from Egypt to Israel. However,
Mr. sorry, your presentation is not moving. Are you changing?
Yes, I am changing. Absolutely.
No, it's not. It's okay now. Yeah.
It's okay?
Yeah, it's okay. It's changing now. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I will continue. The offshore pipeline between Egypt and Israel was established to import gas from Egypt to Israel, and now is being used to export gas from Israel to Egypt. Israel is supplying 100% of its gas needs domestically through three existing projects: the Tamar platform, which is entering its almost 8th year of production; the Leviathan platform, which has been producing gas for 3 years and more; and most recently, the Karish project, the FPSO, which has started to deliver gas at the end of 2022. As you can see, the choice of infrastructure, two of these fields have subsea tieback to platform designs. They're located in the continuous zone, the Tamar platform, and the territorial waters, the Leviathan platform. And the Karish FPSO is located 90 miles offshore in Israel's established EEZ. The primary operator is Chevron, with the exception of the Karish FPSO, which is operated by Energean. In order to ensure Israel's benefit from the wealth that is accumulated, it had to undergo significant financial reform. I note this because the same process could occur in the north of the border in Lebanon as it starts to develop its first fields. And there's a twist here. The twist is that the government has to establish its entitlement for the royalties that could be accumulated when developing offshore infrastructure. The problem is, if you do not do this reform early enough and you attract investors and operators to invest in your economic waters, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars or euros and strike discoveries, and then you try to carry out this taxation reform, then the operators rightfully will argue that you're changing the rules of the game. This is a very important takeaway to any country that is now establishing a natural gas economy, to understand that you have to think about the government take. The government take is, of course, the terminology we use to define how much money a sovereign government will be entitled to receive from the wealth accumulated from the sale of natural gas. In Israel, for example, we carried out this reform through a committee, and as you can see, as of 2022, the royalties that have been accumulated are almost in 10 billion shekels. I note that this is only from the royalties because following Israel's taxation reform, Israel also introduced a levy which is an additional form of tax collection, which will not be accumulated into the government's budget, but will be accumulated into what we call a sovereign wealth fund, which is something that is developed for most offshore and natural gas producing countries. For example, the UAE and Norway, etc. Israel's sovereign wealth fund has entered into effect as of January 22, following the accumulation of more than 1 billion shekels. This is another key economic insight that any government that is planning on developing its offshore infrastructure should take into account, how you can establish a sovereign wealth fund for the benefit of future generations as you consume your natural gas fields. These are economic decisions that could account to hundreds of millions of dollars or euro and should be taken into account as soon as possible. Another key insight that Israel has undertaken in order to establish itself as an exporter was to determine the allocation of how much gas it needs for its own internal use, but also thereafter to define how much gas can be exported. The key here is to find a balance to ensure energy security for a country, and then to be able to export any surplus gas. The first decision that was made was in 2013, what we call the Tzemach Committee, and it allocated gas based on financial modeling, which I will show you in the next slide, for 29 years forward. And then the decision was made with very specific instructions how to calculate the export of any surplus gas. The problem is with numbers always change. Therefore, this decision is revisited every 5 years or so. Most recently, the second Adiri committee put together these numbers. On the left-hand side, you can see the supply scenario, which was relevant for 2021. And on the right-hand side, you can see the demand scenario, which was relevant for 2021. When we talk about exporting gas to Turkey, then this number here is the most important number. It means that as of 2021, there were 921 BCM proven allocated gas in the state of Israel. Based on complex modeling, the Ministry of Energy was able to put together several scenarios and chose option 8 of those scenarios, stating how much gas Israel will need for every single year until the year 2045. And then it summed it all up, and the bottom line at 2021 was taking into account a 2.13 growth rate attributed to increased electricity production and very high impact of electric vehicles. Israel will probably need 482 BCM until 2045. So if you take into account that export quotes could reach anywhere between 40 to 50% of Israel's gas, that would leave about 460 BCM available for export. Now, these numbers always change because as we proceed, then Israel will probably, hopefully, discover more gas. So the 921 BCM number will probably increase. But also, we will have to see how Israel's renewable energy industry will reduce Israel's reliance on natural gas, and therefore the demand side may also increase. Having said that, when it comes to exporting gas to Turkey, take into account that currently, and this is reports from the oil and gas companies, there's an almost endless market to sell Israeli gas to Israel, Jordan, and the European Union. And most of it is already contracted out. Therefore, in order to establish enough gas to export to Turkey, there has to be significant investment in exploration. It has to be a policy decision made by the governments, and we have to attract investors and build the necessary infrastructure, most probably through LNG. So, looking forward, having said that we need to discover more gas, Israel is in the midst of an offshore licensing round. It completed an offshore licensing round in September 2020 for Block 72, which is the yellow block here. And that's the one adjacent to Block 9 and basically connects between the Kana field and the Tidon field. And that's the block which will need to be delivered to a concessionaire or held by the government. We don't know what the results will be yet. Looking forward, OBR4 is in the midst of preparation. Hopefully, as you can see, one of the consequences of the Israel-Lebanon agreement is that Israel is now offering all of the license blocks along the Israeli-Lebanon border all the way up to the connection with Cyprus. And I am also aware that the Lebanese side are doing the same thing. So we may see a situation where companies like Total and Eni and others will be bidding for offshore blocks on both sides of the border. And this would be a direct result of the Israel-Lebanon agreement, and it's very good news for everyone, and especially for potential for export, because if we discover more gas, there will be more gas to export to Turkey as well. So just very important to follow the corporations that are active alongside the border. So we know that Eni and Energean are very active in Egypt, as is Chevron. In Cyprus, we know that Shell, Chevron, and NewMed are very active, and Exxon have shown interest as well. And in Lebanon, we know that Total and Eni are taking a dominant position. Therefore, these are the list of companies that may show interest in our region and should be courted to participate in OBR4 on the Israeli side as well as on the Lebanese side. And Turkey should show an interest in these companies because they could be the companies that could ultimately export gas to Turkey in the future if such a policy decision was made. One last point before I conclude. Israel has joined the EastMed Gas Forum, which kicked off its official obligations in 2019. The EMGF is a regional international organization dedicated to natural gas, and its members are Egypt, Greece, Cyprus, France, Italy, Jordan, the PA, and Israel. Personally, I believe Turkey must be a member of this organization. I also believe that Lebanon must be a member of this organization. Their observers are USA, EU, and the World Bank. And basically, this organization harmonizes the development of natural gas resources in the region, not only at a diplomatic level, but it holds forums. The forums conduct regular discussions at the ministry level, at the regulatory authority level, but most importantly to Turkey, at the gas industry level. You need access to funding, you need access to tech companies, EPC companies, and operators. no single country can develop a healthy natural gas ecosystem without collaborating with its neighbors. And therefore, it's important to emphasize that Israel is now fully collaborating with its neighbors to develop its natural gas economy, and this will probably increase in the years to come. So thank you. That was my presentation.
Thank you very much. It was very good presentation, Mr. Oren Scheffler, because Oren Scheffler has given us very detailed information about Israel's and also the East Med natural gas resources, and also the existing resources and the future resources. And he has also concluded that the East Med project must regenerate and rebuild, including Turkey and also the Lebanon probably. Then a new East Med project may be realized, and this may help Europe's natural gas demand, because Europe's natural gas demand is increasing after outbreak of Russia and Ukraine war. So this new East Med project may be the best alternative, or one of the alternatives for Europe as well. Okay, so today we discussed and we evaluated the issue in details with distinguished speakers. So thank you very much for all for your contribution, for attending the session and giving valuable information and the comments. Okay, I think that's enough for us. That's all for us. Thank you very much again for your attendance and for your contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you very much.
See you. Bye. That's all from us.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. See you then.